Hey, good morning. Welcome to Faith on Hill's online Sunday morning service. We gather together every Sunday morning, both online and in person. We're starting John chapter 10 this morning. And in verse 1, it says, "Truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter by the sheep pen, by the gate, but climbs in some other way is a thief and a robber." This is a continuation of the conversation Jesus was having with them last week. In chapter 9, Jesus was talking with the man who was born blind, and Jesus gave him his sight. And he said, I've come to make the blind see and make those who see blind. And the Pharisees said, "What, are you saying we're blind now?" And Jesus said, "Hey, if you were blind, you'd have no guilt. But you've seen everything, and yet you still reject me. So you are making yourselves spiritually blind." And then he says this whole thing about if you enter the sheep pen by any other way other than the gate, you're false. You're a thief. You're a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he has brought them all out on his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. He's saying, yes, you are becoming blind because you're not following the true shepherd. Now, the implication is that there were those who had come in another way. Maybe they hopped the fence, climbed the wall. The sheep pen, I think of it as sort of like a low fence, an enclosed area where sheep or pigs or goats or other livestock are kept. Maybe in the ancient times there was more of a stone wall that encircled an area, and that was where you put your sheep. I have heard, I don't know how true this is. I'm just going to say, I've read this, I've heard this, but whether, I'm not an expert in ancient Mediterranean shepherding practices. When I know something, I'll tell you. When I've heard something, but I'm not sure, I'll tell you this, same thing. But I've heard that basically you could have a communal sheep pen for the whole congregation, this communal sheep pen for the whole town, the whole village. And that a shepherd can come up and say a command or give a whistle or whatever, and that the sheep that are his will come to him and leave, and the other sheep will just ignore the shepherd. You're not my shepherd. I'm not following you. That sheep are dumb animals. I'm just going to say it outright. I have been around sheep. When I lived in England, there are sheep everywhere in the countryside. They're not the brightest animals, but apparently they can know the shepherd's voice. And so shepherd comes up to the gate, opens the gate. That implies that the shepherd maybe has the key, or whoever's guarding the door has said, "Oh yeah, this is the guy, go through." Jesus not only had the key, meaning he himself was the Messiah. He is God in human flesh, so he has the right to enter. But those who were guarding the gate, John the Baptist, were saying, "Hey, this is the one." He's saying, "Hey, somebody else could hop over the fence. And if they don't come through the right way, it's obvious that they're a robber, they're a thief, they're there to steal the sheep. And even if somebody does come through the right way and says, 'Hey, sheep, come here,' and I don't know what they say. I just think of the movie Babe, Ba Ram you and the whole thing. But whatever it is, if it's not his sheep, they won't follow. And he's saying, you're showing that it doesn't matter that you're a Pharisee, that you're a rabbi, that you're a scribe, that you're a teacher of the law, that you're one of the priests, that you're a rabbi of a synagogue or whatever. You're not following Jesus. You're showing that you are an enemy of God. And then he says in verse 7, "Truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep." He's not just the shepherd, he's the gate. Meaning, he as the shepherd calls out those who are his, and those who are his know him and respond. But if you want to get in, if you want to get into the kingdom of heaven, if you want to join the flock, the family of God, you have to go through Jesus. And if you go through some other way, it's not real, it's not valid. Jesus said, "I am the gate for the sheep." Verse 8, "All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief only comes to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they might have life and life to the full." Now he's acknowledging there have been others who have claimed to be the Messiah. And we know from secular history that there were others who made claims to being the Messiah, that there were those who would come along and say, I'm this guy, and they would get 50 people, 70 people, 100 people to go follow him out to the wilderness. They'd try to build up some following, and then maybe they would try to raise up an insurrection, and the Romans would quickly crush them, and everybody would be scattered, or nobody would follow them. Somebody would come, claiming to be a prophet, and nobody cared. Nobody paid attention. And Jesus said, hey, there are others who have come, and they've tried to raise it, and you've seen. The people haven't responded, but here the people are responding to Jesus. Jesus says, hey, all of this stuff that has happened, the ministry of John the Baptist, the work that I am doing, the things that are going on, this didn't happen with those other guys. You can say, oh, we've had plenty of people come and say, I'm the Messiah, I'm the one, I'm the prophet, follow me. He's saying, look, it hasn't bared out. What has bared out is the work that Jesus is doing. Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away, and the wolf attacks the flock and it scatters. This man runs away because he is a hired hand, cares nothing for the sheep. So what Jesus is saying is a true shepherd will lay down his life, meaning, and he's speaking prophetically, that he was going to lay down his life for those who are his. And others might come along and say, follow me, I'm here, I'm for you. And we have seen this over and over again. James Jones, David Koresh, religious leader after religious leader who has come along saying, follow me, I am the truth, I am the way. And they have not laid down their lives, they've taken others' lives. They've robbed. I think there is something to that too in the church. You want to know who the real pastors are? It's the people that care and lay down their life and are here for the people. Jesus is saying, like, these others came, they were trying to make something of themselves. I'm here to give myself away. Jesus says in verse 14, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this pen, and I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. And the reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from the Father, and the Jews who heard this word were again divided. Many of them said he is demon-possessed and raving mad. Why listen to him? And others said, this is not the sayings of a man possessed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? So what we have is Jesus making this direct claim. I am the shepherd of the people Israel. I am the true shepherd. I'm showing that because I'm going to lay my life down. I am showing that because the sheep hear my voice and are responding, which was a big issue for the Pharisees. Why are the people responding to Jesus and not to us? So now they have this direct claim that they have to deal with. Is Jesus really the true shepherd of Israel? Is Jesus really the Messiah? Do the people really respond to him and know him the way he says he responds to the Father? So they're divided. And some of them just say, oh, he's raving mad. He's a lunatic. If I can offset, if I can deflect, if I can minimize, then I can ignore Jesus. But others said, look, this is not the words of a crazy person. This isn't how a crazy person talks. We know we've interacted with people who have significant mental health issues, who have significant delusional issues. This is not this Jesus guy. And look at the work he is doing. Look at the work he is doing. You say that he's demon-possessed, and that's where his power comes from. But have we ever seen somebody who seems to be demonically controlled doing these good works of healing, calling people to repent, calling people to glorify God? When has that ever happened? So they're divided. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. That is how things are in our own day. People are divided. We live in a 50-50, 50% of the country thinks this, 50% of the country thinks that. We live in this very divided, polarized world. And unfortunately, as much as I hate all that polarization, everybody has to make a choice. Do you accept Jesus or do you not? And so for those who are listening who say, I don't know what I believe, there will come a point where you have to make a choice. Otherwise, not making a choice is in and of itself a choice against Jesus. For those of us who do know what we believe, we have to understand Jesus said there are thieves and robbers coming. There are false teachers. People who are not interested in the kingdom of heaven, people who are interested in the kingdoms of this earth or of their own agenda or of their own glory and not the glory of God. And so we have to recognize that is still a reality. What Jesus is talking about is still a thing. And are we responding to what Jesus has said, or are we buying into the words of thieves and robbers who are not interested in the kingdom of heaven? The Pharisees did not like the idea. They thought they were the ones who were top of the heap spiritually, morally, religiously. The idea that Jesus was calling them to repent and turn from their ways and follow him too. Friends, church people don't like this idea. The idea that we need to repent, turn from our ways and follow him. The idea that maybe, oh no, we're right about this and we're standing for that. And then Jesus exposes something in our own lives or in our church. And then we say, well, how could we? That can't be. And we'll find ways to fight it, to fight against it. We saw this quite honestly. We had to work through things, right? As a church, we had to work through issues of racism and racial injustice several years ago. And it was a process, and I'm proud of our church for that process. But we had to work through these things. What's real, what's not, what is hyperbole, and what is actual truth that we might have to own. And those are things that I think are healthy and good and valid. And in the same way that we had to work through some things as God was stirring some things up in our own lives, I think that's the question is, you might say, I'm a good person. I'm a moral person. I'm a spiritual person. And Jesus might be saying, hey, you're following a false shepherd. You haven't responded to the true shepherd's voice when he has called you. What will you do with that? So you know what? Here's what I'm delighted about. That Jesus' offer to enter in and become part of his flock is still there and available to all who would believe. And that invitation is there for all people. And when we hear his voice, we can know how to respond and say, yes, Jesus, I want you. I want to follow you. I want to be yours. And you are my master. You are my shepherd. I was talking to a friend in a different part of the country, but it was interesting. All the things that are going on in churches here are going on in churches there. Totally different part of the country. And we were kind of acknowledging, I mentioned it last week, there's this survey that said 16% of church-going Americans affirm the Trinity, which is one of those big, non-negotiable, every Christian who's ever lived kind of believes this sort of thing. We were talking, and I said, it could be that the reason we feel so alone or lost or disconnected is that we're in a smaller group than we realize. And it could be that those who are hearing and responding to the shepherd's voice isn't as many people as we thought. And that's a challenging thought. Maybe you're like the Pharisees. You've gone to church your whole life. You know a bunch of Bible verses. You listen to Christian music or do this Christian thing. But maybe, like the Pharisees, Jesus is calling you to something bigger and better and harder and more difficult, but worth it. We're glad that you were here with us today. We love gathering together as a church family, and we're excited to be here Sunday mornings, 10:30 a.m., whether it's at faithonhill.com or in person at our building on Hill Road, to connect, to care about each other, to pray for one another. There is something powerful that happens when God's people are together, seeking him, praying for one another. And I'm so thankful to be a part of it. God bless you. We'll see you next time as we gather together and finish up John chapter 10.